Hey guys, it's been a busy morning. So in the room, we've been focused on NVIDIA, obviously earnings today. It's kind of what's driving the whole sector right now. It's what's driving the market. Lots and lots of trading opportunities. Had to be careful on them because the stops need to be tighter today than on a typical day. And that seems counterintuitive since the volatility is increasing. And I did get stopped out a couple times on some entries right around the opening bell. One of them I got into on a move that was a little wider than what I would usually take. So usually I like to see NVIDIA sort of bunch up, as Julie likes to say, under a threshold level and then move through one of those levels on the plan. That gets you in and gets you in with very little risk and gets you out at a target pretty quickly. Today, just because of what was going on, it looked like, maybe this thing was going to pop and just ride off into the sunset there and get some good profits. But the first two, just boom, right back down, stopped you out. Nothing big, just about 30 cents per share on those. And then the rest of the day has been great. So from the levels, it's just, I think we did 5 trades on NVIDIA so far, all of them straight to the targets. The key with those is just to keep getting back in front of the opportunities, always be in front of the opportunity when it's there. And then, at least you are in the right place at the right time to take advantage of it. Still keeping the stops tight. I'm going to show you in a second here on the NVIDIA chart what we've been thinking over the course of the day, and then get into some of the rest of the stuff that's going on. First, let's take a look at the triple Qs and talk about that NQ trade, and then we'll get into the Magnificent Seven. Here we go. Here's the charts. You can see it's been, that kind of day on QQQ where we have got lots of price action, and the price action has been, it was predominantly lower early in the session, but this thing's been climbing now. So initially, I was telling the guys, we want to, if you're going to do an NQ trade, you want to get short at spot 60, so $500.60. That short had a target down at $499.22. Again, we trade these on the NQ, not on the QQQ, but we use the Q as an entry signal. Then we had another leg higher. I don't have an anchored VWAP on this one, but you can see there when it came back down through the pivot, that looked like an opportunity on the short side with a target right down here at first support. But then, now I think the trend is starting to be higher. So I think if we get down into support again, I'm going to look for the opportunity for a move higher, especially if these guys get just one leg up and above here so that we get back up above that central pivot, break those prior highs, and then see a pullback either into 501.15, spot 60, $500.60, or down to the pivot itself at 499.04. Okay, so that is the QQQ, with the exception of we also need to watch these guys here. You can see the volatility bands are starting to aggregate right around where that histogram is on the volume by price. That's a good thing, so that makes for some more predictable trading going into the afternoon. Let's take a look here at our Magnificent Seven. Talk about the strategy here. This is what everybody's interested in. This is what everybody's been trading all day probably. Let's start with Apple and just say, Apple has been trending lower. I was just talking to Eric about this in the room, and Manny, what the focus is. So I'm trying to stay on the right side of the pivot and the volume weighted average price for the session on all of these. So, pivot is your central gravity point. The pivot is really, the pivot line is that red line in there. That's telling you where price should be. That's telling you where price is expected to be based on what happened in yesterday's trading. It's sort of the value line for the session. So on Apple, it's trading below the pivot. That tells me what I already know. It's in a downtrend. 277.65 is the level that has the support and resistance right there, and it has our volume by price, and it has the session VWAP. So from there, I'm looking for a move lower, and lower is back down into that pivot line just above 226.50. On Amazon, this one is sort of the same thing, except this time I'm looking for it to get above the volume weighted average price and then put in a reversal lower to the volume weighted average price. So that's a 202.21 print on the short sale and a 200 spot 92 print on the exit, maybe a little bit higher based on where that VWAP is at the time that you get in. Google, there's the same kind of a setup. If we get up into 176.96, I am looking for the move back down into 176.41, just back down into that pivot line. Looking for this one to oscillate around the volume weighted average price and these stacks right here. So the hierarchical cluster analysis there of that volume by price data says, you know, if it's as long as it stays in that range, we've got lots and lots of opportunity for it to just move back and forth. It's trading in the box. In the box is what I like. In the box is where the money is during the day and makes for the less risky trades over the session. Yesterday was hard because the market was trending, and it's real hard to figure out where to get in and how not to get in and be just in front of a train, right? It's the light at the end of the tunnel could very well be a locomotive, so you have to know when to get out of the way of the market. On Meta, if Meta, you know, this one I'm not super nuts about. I did love this infield fly bar up here. I missed it. That's sad, but that's going to happen. You're going to miss some trades. If it does that again, if it gets up above R1 and puts in that same kind of a pattern, big extension reversal kind of a thing, then I would look at the short side. Otherwise, I am thinking that right now we need to add a support and resistance line, you know, right underneath there to give us an idea of where we might inflect. So I'm going to say right there about 561.82, a 561.82 print that could see a 562.87 target. So I like that one on the long side. Microsoft, this was the one that we were just talking about in the room. This big trend at the downside has been pretty much reversed by the move back up into the pivot. The trade that we caught in the room was this infield fly set up right at the pivot. I love it when that happens. That tells us we've got confluence, and we have confluence that a lot of people are watching. So it's one thing to say you've got volume by price. Well, volume by price is something that a bunch of us watch, especially we've been to the boot camp and everything. But the pivot lines, that's something everybody's watching. The VWAP, that's something everybody's watching. And that move was one that you could predict with a pretty high degree of confidence. That was 416, 415.76 if you got it below the pivot, all the way down to 413.58. That was a really good setup, and I'm just going to watch for that kind of a thing to happen again. And then, right, baby on board, here we go. Here's NVIDIA. This one is in this little box right here. So for right now, 145.50 down to 145.04 at the pivot. That's a decent piece of travel range. And then back up from the pivot line into the 145.50 area. So we just took that trade a bunch of times. Manny was asking about, what is the sort of guiding principle? What do we want to focus on? Again, I don't know if, most of you guys have access to the room. Get in there if you're not there, because we're talking about this stuff. When it dips below, what's the criteria for getting in? So it's all about where does it go once it gets below there. So definitely, I don't want to see price dip any lower than right here. And it's about whether or not it's too far, because if it gets down below there, you guys were just asking about, where do you put the stops? Where's the stop got to go on this thing? If it gets below there, I'm a pumpkin. I'm out of this thing. I'm not interested in riding it all the way down to here to see whether or not it's going to reverse, and make the move back up through here, because those long bars, they don't tend to be great trades anyways. So if it gets down and dips into anything above this red line, and then in the next bar pushes up again, then I take it again and look for that 145.50 print on it. So I'm not going to say simple, but it is logical, and as far as I'm concerned, that makes sense, and it gives me a rationale for whether or not to take a trade. So if we get down here right now and we push down below this threshold level and we start getting down into here, then what I want to see is a bar that reverses back up, and then the next bar to come up and sort of bunch up under the line there, and then eventually we get a push up through on narrow range bars. I don't want to get in on any kind of a wide range bar on NVIDIA today, period. Tesla, I just missed a beautiful short because I'm here talking, but there it is. It's from 339.18 down to 337.25. You can see it exactly hit our target. This is predictable price behavior. It came down from the VWAP, came down, hit exactly at the prior support and resistance level that we were targeting. right? I love it when a plan comes together, and that is, you know, there's no better indication that you've come together than, you know, when you see that kind of price action. Okay, so I think that that wraps up everything that I wanted to talk about today. So let's just go and wrap this baby up, and I will see all of you back here tomorrow. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, adrian@traderinsight.com. If you're one of our guys, send me a text and just let me know that you need to know something. It's going to take a while to answer emails, okay? Have a good one.